Retirement isn't just about leaving work. It's about choosing how you want to live the next chapter of your life. If that thought has crossed your mind even briefly, you're in the right place. I'm Tony Da Silva, and welcome to the premiere episode of the Aging Agenda show. This show is for people who know retirement is coming and who want to feel ready, because retirement isn't just one decision. It's a series of choices that shape your finances, your family, and your day-to-day life. For some, retirement feels exciting. For others, it feels uncertain or even overwhelming. For most of us, it's a mix of all three. On the Aging Agenda, we have the conversations many people put off while life is busy. Not just when to retire, but how to retire well. We keep it practical and jargon-free as we tackle questions like, why am I thinking about retiring now? What does affording retirement really mean for my lifestyle? How will my choices affect the people who matter most to me? What do I want my retirement years to look like? These are life questions, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. This show is complemented by the Aging Boldfully show, where we focus on aging well and living full, meaningful lives, because fulfilling retirement often begins just outside of your comfort zone. Today, my guest is also my co-host, Sue Roback. Sue said she wanted a co-host who'd skip happy hour and bring their AARP card to the set. And here I am. Today, Sue and I are talking about why I'm considering retiring now. Let's get started.
So my question to you, my friend Tony, is did you give up happy hour? Or
No.
Is that, no.
Where I live, we have happy hour every day at 4.
Yeah, okay. I figured that.
Yes.
So, but I do appreciate you agreeing to be the lead for this show. We talked about it. It's, you're my co-host for Aging Boldfully. We thought, Aging Agenda would be a nice complement to talk about those building blocks that have to be there, those foundational pieces, so you can decide when you're going to retire.
Right. When you asked me to help you with your show, I took a look at what you were doing, and being an engineer kind of guy, I thought about, that's great, but what are all the things I need to do? Because I'm a planner.
Yeah.
What do I need to do before I retire? Hence, Aging Agenda.
Right.
So I want to focus more on what should I do before I retire. So I'm planning to retire. So let me ask you, did you retire when you planned to?
I did not.
You did not. And why was that?
Well, as you said in the beginning, I think each person has to make an individual decision or a decision if they have a partner, et cetera, as to when they're going to retire. And sometimes it is unexpected for a variety of reasons, and we'll get into that. I like to use the highway analogy. I know you don't like that, right? You just told me you didn't like it.
I'll tolerate it.
All right. So in my mind, a retirement is about, I think of it as about being on a highway. And the longer you're on that highway, the more options you have in terms of getting off, maybe at the first exit, planned and early, or you have to stay on till the second exit or the third exit, depending on how you've prepared yourself. And sometimes it's something that happens that gets tossed in your way that you didn't expect. So you're driving and somebody's slow in front of you and you've got to slow up. Or something's going really well and you can pass that person. So that's how I think about it, putting these building blocks in place so that, when you get, retirement is sort of a 2-lane decision, all those building blocks, my finances, and then the other side is, how am I going to live my life? What is my life going to look like? How can I stay engaged after I retire? So that's why we wanted to, as you said, complement these two shows. So for me, if you're asking specifically for me, it was unplanned by choice.
Okay.
Meaning I was unhappy in my current position, even though I loved it, and I had to make a choice. So sometimes you're in these jobs that may be affecting your health, physical health,
Right.
mental health, and you have to make a decision, am I going to stay or am I going to go? And again, it's, how did you prepare yourself along the way? And I think that gives you more options, right? It gives me more options to say, yeah, I'm going to get off at that first exit. Or, if I'm a single individual, maybe I couldn't have made that choice. Even though I put those building blocks away, in place, I should say. So it may be easier if you're married and you can rely on, your spouse to help, financially so that you can make that choice. So, every decision, every retirement decision looks very different.
It's interesting because one of the things you hit on is the gating item for me when I decided to retire was, could I afford to retire? Mm-hmm. And
but you were thinking about that well in
yeah,
advance.
I had been thinking
right?
about it well in advance,
Yep.
and I ended up retiring when I wanted to retire. And the reason I picked a specific date was I wanted to make sure that my wife could get Medicare. So I had to wait for my wife to be 65 in order for me to be able to retire, and that was the gating item for me, which brings back a whole lot of brings up a whole lot of questions. One is, okay, so I can afford to retire. The next question is, do I want to retire now? Maybe I've got a job that I really enjoy. Maybe I got a job that pays so well. I'm thinking, well, I've been doing it a long time. This is pretty easy and essentially free money. Or I could be in a situation that you found yourself in. I really like my job, but I've got a new boss that I'm not thrilled with, or the company's moving to Atlanta and they didn't ask me to go. So, as you said, there's a number of questions that help you determine the date that you're going to retire. Some of them are planned, which is nice if you can plan and ready to go, but statistically, I've read that almost half of all retirements are essentially unplanned, meaning that the person retired prior to their planned retirement date. And we already talked about some of the reasons why that could be. It could be a life event. Maybe they're not up to the job anymore in terms of their physical health. They work in construction and you get to be a certain age and you just can't lift those cinder blocks anymore. Or it could be, as I mentioned, in high tech, companies tend to move around a lot, especially in the Boston area. You've got a great job, but they're moving to New Jersey and not a great place to go. So you never know what the event is. It could be that your spouse is ill or you've got to take care of an ill child. So you're forced to retire essentially unplanned. You had been thinking about it, but something forced you to say, I got to go now.
Well, I mean, and that's why I think, this show is important in the sense that, you're going to provide elements that, as I said, you need to consider and put in place before you get there, so that if something unexpectedly happens, and I didn't realize, what did you say, 49%? Is that what you said?
Yeah, just under 50%.
Yeah,
of the
I
people.
mean, I'm shocked at that. I would think it would be a lot lower.
I would have thought so too.
Yeah. But, I think one of the key indicators there, too, is a key decision is Medicare and health insurance, because it's so expensive.
That was the key driver for my personal decision.
Yeah. So if you have an unplanned retirement and you're not close to being able to get Medicare, private insurance is very expensive.
Right.
So I think that was the thing for us too, is the eligibility for Medicare.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings up another point. If you find yourself in a position that you have to retire prior to your planned retirement date, perhaps you want to work part-time. Perhaps you have to work part-time because you need the insurance or you have financial constraints.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that part-time job probably isn't as, your salary probably isn't as high. Well, obviously you're getting paid half, right? But, it's probably not a position that you probably had. And so, even though you're working part-time, it may not necessarily still meet your financial needs either.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're planning to retire, they said all the things that you should do is, the gating item for me was, can I afford to retire? Number one. Once I make that decision, I can afford to retire. Then there's a whole host of things that I wanted to do before I actually retired. I wanted to do these while I was still working, rather than do these, quote, on my own time after I've stopped working.
What was that?
Well, some of the topics that come up is, okay, I can afford to retire. Am I including my Social Security in that or not? Because, prior to whenever you start taking Social Security, it could be as early as age 62, or you could postpone it to 70.
Right.
How does that factor into, can I afford to retire?
Right.
And the second part to that question is, I can afford to retire, but can I afford to do what I want to do? How's this retirement going to look to me?
Sure.
The people who depend on me, is my spouse going to like it?
Right.
Assuming I have a spouse or a partner.
Right.
So those kinds of questions all tie into the financial piece.
Yeah.
Okay, I can afford to retire, but am I going to eat hamburger helper? Or am I going to be able to go out every day? So those things all come into play.
Are you eating the hamburger helper right now?
Fortunately, I planned when I wanted to, so no hamburger helper at my house.
Yet.
Not yet. Yeah, if I
Yet.
live long enough, which is a
Yet.
whole other topic we can talk about.
Yes.
Because retirement for some people lasts a few months. Many people, according to the government, die before they ever
Yeah.
collect any Social Security.
Right.
On the other
Right.
hand,
Right.
maybe I had enough money to live to 85, and all of a sudden I find myself at 90.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, that's a big oops. So these are the kinds of things
Well,
that you think about
yeah.
before you make that final
yeah.
decision.
Well, we talked about that the other day. And we talked about how it is a crapshoot, really, because, if you go by an average of how long you're going to live, you just never know,
Right.
how your life is going to look and how your health is going to be. So it's hard, to make those financial decisions because you're taking a risk. Like
Right.
you're trying to forecast this out, and who knows if you're going to be right or wrong.
Right. Well, in my previous career, I was in risk management, specifically IT risk management. And one of the things we learn to do is we want to spread that risk out as much as we can. So what I did before I retired is I created some trusts. And I brought my family together and I said, if I live a long time, you guys can get some of this. If I don't, we can change this trust anytime you want. So I'm
Right.
trying to lower my risk. If I live to 90, I want to make sure you're going to take care of me,
Right.
or at least know that I need to be taken care of.
Right.
So let
right.
them know. It's important that you let your family know what you're planning for your future. Because
Yeah.
I said it could be 6 months or it could be 25 years.
Yeah, and there is a very high mortality rate after people retire. And, I don't know the reason for that. I mean, I've never really looked into it, but supposedly the mortality rate spikes when people retire.
Well, there's a couple of, there's a couple of answers to that. One is what you talk about primarily in your show, and aging boldly. Because if you retire unplanned or planned and you just plan to sit on the couch watching TV, 8 hours a day, no exercise, no social circle, that definitely is going to determine how long you're going to live.
Right, sure.
Right. If, on the other hand, you retire and you get out and play golf 3 days a week and you go bowling and dancing and whatever you're doing, and you have a strong social circle, you'll live longer.
Right.
But it's a crapshoot.
Well, and that's assuming you're healthy when you retire too.
Well, that's...
I mean, sometimes if you're working so hard, you may not be diligent about your health.
Right.
And maybe that's the spike also, another explanation, who knows.
Right. It also depends on the career you had. If you spent 30 years in the construction industry, your body's taken a lot of wear and tear.
Right.
Versus 30 years in a lab or on a keyboard,
Right.
you get carpal tunnel. That's it.
Right.
Life is good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a crapshoot.
It is.
Okay.
It
But
is,
your show on
absolutely.
the Aging Boldly show talks a lot about not only the mental aspect of that, the social circle you have, your friends, how often you get out, that kind of, but it also talks about your physical health.
Yeah.
Everything from stretching, which anybody can do, or walking.
Yeah, balancing.
Exercising,
Yeah.
balancing, all of those things are key for a long, healthy retirement.
Right. Sure.
One of the other things that I had to think about when I decided to retire is, will I have enough money to live the life I want to live?
Right.
Okay. And in your mind, before you retire, you think, oh yeah, I've been putting off that trip to Europe. I always wanted to go to Alaska, and I want to fish 4 days a week in Maine. But when you get to be 65 or 70 or older, you think, no, that trip in Alaska, if it doesn't come with cable TV, I'm probably not too interested. So your goals change.
Why?
Your needs change.
Why?
Well, because all of a sudden, I like to be in at 8 o'clock and sleep by 9.
Well, you can do that in Alaska.
not without watching my cable TV.
Oh my God.
Right.
For
So-
like 7 days, you can't sacrifice
I
it.
want some luxury. What I'm saying is I want some luxury.
Well, I mean, don't go camping, go glamping. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what to
right.
tell
If
you.
I'm going to go fishing in Alaska, I want a guide who's going to take care of everything for me.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
want those kinds of hotel facilities. So what I'm saying is that what you think about prior to retirement changes a little bit when you do retire.
Yeah.
Right? You know, travel is fine, and you know, I've done lots of traveling. But after a while, you get tired of traveling, especially as you get older. Your mobility changes.
Yeah, no,
You-
I understand.
Yeah, you can't do
Yeah.
all the things you thought you could do.
Yeah, I understand. But I mean, I also think you need to stay open to the world of possibilities too.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely. I'm
Yeah,
just,
but that's the whole point of being. Yeah, I know you don't like this analogy, but being
On your road-
getting
you're on the
on
road
that,
again.
yeah, getting in your car and being on the highway as long as possible before you get off the highway. You're at least giving yourself options.
Right.
Right.
The question for me on your little highway analogy is when I get off, do I have a 5-star hotel?
The
Or do
first
I have to
exit-
live, or do I have to go to a red roof?
The first exit you get, whatever you want.
Right. And what I
Yeah.
do is, in my end of the aging agenda, is I want to make sure that I can go to the hotel I want to go.
Yeah, I understand that. And you know, the other thing too, as we've talked, I mean, lots of things can happen along the way that changes your options and your possibilities, and you know, you have to also take that into consideration. So, you know, that flexibility, you know, becomes important, right?
It does.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, when you do retire, I mean, you have no control over a lot of things, whether
Right.
it's your own personal health, your spouse's health, life events, all of those kinds of things come into play, and they affect your retirement in ways that you hadn't planned on.
Correct.
Right? So,
Yeah.
so you do the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I really looked at before I retired was, you know, what am I going to do day to day? I mean, I had a job where, you know, I was in IT and I was always in an underground bunker and no windows. So I always wanted to get out, right? So when I retired, I said, okay, I want to do some hiking. And I've been able to do lots of hiking. I want to spend time outdoors. I want to go fishing. So I was able to do all those kinds of things. But that was because I planned for it, and I was lucky enough to retire when I planned, and I was healthy enough
Right.
to do it.
Right,
And I
right.
could afford to do it.
Right,
But now
right.
I'm well into my retirement years, and now I don't want to do as much of that.
Well, then
So-
you know, but it comes down to choice. Right?
And I still have the choice.
Right.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
But again, it helps to plan. Think of all of these things before
Yes.
you decide to retire,
Yes.
assuming you retire when you plan on.
Right.
That's the advantage.
Right.
Right. One of the other things that came into play is insurance. And for me particularly, it was life insurance. So I had been carrying all this life insurance because I had 2 kids and I had to put them through college, and I was a sole supporter anyway. So I had all this life insurance. And then after I retired, I talked to an insurance agent, and he was a friend of mine. And fortunately, he said, you know, you're probably not going to need all this life insurance. You've got enough money to retire comfortably. You know, you're only going to need enough money to bury you. Right? You probably you probably don't need all this life insurance. You can drop these policies. And
Yeah.
in fact, some of the policies give you cash back.
Right.
Or you can sell your policy.
Right.
So we'll probably talk later in another episode about insurance and,
Sure.
and how insurance ties into Social
Sure,
Security
sure.
and you know, annuities and all those kinds of things
Yeah.
that come into play in terms
Yeah.
of can I afford to retire?
Right.
And can I afford to retire and do the things that I want to do?
Right.
So that's another aspect that I really wanted to look at before I retired. And unfortunately, I didn't do it till shortly after I retired, or where my first premium came due, and I said, why am I paying this every year? So quick, get on the phone, call the guy up and say, hey, let's talk. So you don't get I did not have all the answers on the day I retired, even though I thought about it. I thought I did, but I didn't.
Well, I mean, and I think, you know, that's the other thing too. I mean, your show is a guide for people, but there are always going to be things that come up that you didn't expect. And I think some of your guests will probably tease that out about some of the unexpected stuff that can happen that people have to consider. But, you know, this isn't a be-all, end-all. I mean, there are going to be unexpected stuff that comes up that you didn't know. Things change, rules change, you know, state laws change, all of that stuff, and it's hard to track it, every year. It's a very fluid. So you're making a decision at a snapshot in time, and then and then things change.
Right.
And then something happens, and it was unexpected, and you have to deal with it.
And you just triggered a thought in my mind. One of the things that came back
Oh,
and
that's
bit me in
nice.
the
I'm
butt when
glad
I
I
wasn't
triggered
looking,
something.
you did. Taxes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I was so used to paying taxes, right? I mean, I had a W-2 and yada, yada, yada. April 15th came and I hated it. I had to pay taxes. Okay.
You wore black that day? April 15th?
A T-shirt, that's all I could afford. But anyway, back to tax.
Yes.
So I didn't realize that my tax status was going to change pretty dramatically after I stopped working. Because all of a sudden my income, my tax base really was determined by where my income came from. I no longer was really sitting on a W-2, but I was sitting on a defined benefit plan or an annuity or dividends or capital gains or whatever. And all of those things come into play.
Yes.
And you kind of think you got that figured out after the first year or two.
Yes.
And then you find out that the government changed the rules again.
Yes.
Then you get to be 70 and a half or whatever the rule is this year.
73.
Yeah, now it's 73.
Yeah.
You have to take a required minimum distribution, RMD.
Right.
And they make you take this money. It doesn't make any difference if you need it or not, but they're going to get you. They're going to tax you.
Yeah.
So you better talk to an accountant. I had better talk to an accountant and figure out how can I minimize my taxes. Again, something that I hadn't really thought about prior to retiring.
Yeah, and there is this magical sweet spot in terms of age where, your tax situation may be more beneficial to you before you hit 73, before you hit that required minimum distribution. So, I mean, those are things to consider that people probably don't figure out, because now you're getting income from other sources that you didn't typically, it was your job, but now it's all these other buckets. If you've invested in other areas that you're gaining income, and that does affect your taxes. So I think that's another area that you're going to cover
It is,
as well.
Specifically because even though I was a planner, that was something that I never even thought about, was how was my tax status going to change when I did retire. And then as I got older, I'm over 70, at the time it was 71 or 72, whatever, all of a sudden I got this RMD thing, and I'm saying, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? And so anyway, my point is there's a lot to think about prior to actually making the decision as to why am I retiring now.
Yes.
And the more you can plan for it, the better.
Right.
The more you think about, the better.
Right, exactly. And, be mindful that there may be an unplanned event that may alter your plans. And, hopefully you've figured out a backup plan if something were to happen.
Right.
And I think that's a good topic too, in terms of, okay, something spontaneously happened. All right, so now how am I, because it may alter your quality of life.
Very much
It may
so.
offer, your 5-star hotel and the other 1-star.
Yeah.
Right? So that may be altered. And you may have to accept that,
In fact, as I mentioned earlier.
You may do a hostel.
Maybe. I may be an Airbnb guy using my house.
No, you mean, oh, really?
It could be tough.
Oh.
But not to change the subject, that 50% of the people, almost 50% of the people are in that situation, find themselves in that situation.
Right.
That they have to retire prior to their planned retirement. And as I just said, even when you plan it, there's a lot of things that come in and bite you that you didn't even know about.
Right.
So when it's unplanned retirement, you really find yourself scrambling. And where can you go for help? If all of a sudden I find that I have to retire next month and I really haven't done a lot of thinking about it, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I see? So I want to talk a little bit about that in some of the future episodes.
Yeah, so I think, Medicare is super important to be knowledgeable, and because, again, if you were working, your employer really handled your healthcare choices
Exactly.
and management of it. But now you're the manager. You have to choose what you're going to buy, and you also have to manage it.
Right.
So it's not as straightforward.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I live in a retirement community, and many of my neighbors, believe it or not, are actually older than I am. And two in particular have come to me and asked for help because they've had their same medical insurance for 10 and 20 years, and they recently went to their doctor, and their doctor, who they've had forever, said, I no longer accept that insurance. And this came as a total surprise to them.
Right.
They had no idea.
Right.
And even though, you know, the insurance companies send you lots of notifications and the doctors send you notifications, they didn't realize that once a year between October and December, you get to pick your new insurance company if you want to. And if you just throw those letters away like most older people do, they come back and bite you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to these two individuals. And now they are scrambling.
Yeah, that's terrible.
And, yeah, they find themselves, you know, with health issues. They're in the mid-80s. They're very comfortable with the physicians they've been using. And now they're put in a position that they can no longer see those physicians unless they want to pay out of pocket, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Right. Or they have to change insurance companies. So it's tough.
Right.
You bring up a great point. It's tough. And
Right.
again, that's something you don't know about until it hits you.
Right.
Again, something else to worry about, or you should think about prior to retiring. Am I going to be using my same healthcare provider or not? And you don't get to pick, because every year the hospitals or the doctors can change who they use for insurance.
Right.
And
Yeah. They have different contracts with different providers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, again, that's a challenge as you move on through your retirement years.
Yeah. And it, like you said, it becomes more difficult if you're in your 80s.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
you don't want to confuse old people. Trust me.
Right.
I get easily confused.
No, you don't.
On that note, as we wrap up today's conversation, I hope what you've heard reinforces one important idea. Retirement isn't just something that happens overnight. It's a process. And the more thoughtfully you approach it, the more confident you can feel about the choices you make. My co-host, Sue Roback, and I look forward to continuing these conversations with you in future episodes of the Aging Agenda. We'll keep bringing you practical insights, real-world experiences, and thoughtful discussions to help you navigate this stage of your life with clarity and confidence. Think of the Aging Agenda show and our companion program, the Aging Boldfully show, as your personal retirement concierge. Sue and I are here to help you plan the next chapter of your life, because the best years are still ahead. Thank you for spending this time with us. I'm Tony Da Silva, and this has been the Aging Agenda show, helping you plan the next chapter of your life clearly, confidently, and on your own terms. We'll see you next time.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.